My name is Neil George. I'm a current Concordia student studying economics, and I spent 2 months in Malawi doing volunteer work. When I was 16 years old, I thought to myself, what can I do to give back to the community? And it had happened that a friend of mine had come back from Malawi, and he had told his stories of what he did in Malawi. And I was so inspired by the stories that I decided, how can all this be happening in the world and we're not doing anything about it? So I took this opportunity to take a chance and kind of work with that. So during my 2 months, I worked with an organization called Yoneko. I spent 2 months shadowing their work and participating in some of the activities they do. Yoneko is an organization which was started by a man by the name of McBain. He's a local Malawian, and he said to himself, this kind of the same idea as what I had, was everything wrong that's happening inside Malawi, why is it happening and what can I do to fix it? So then he decided to start his own organization to focus solely on women, youth and children and improving their futures. So what he did was he ended up writing submissions for grants for money, and he took the money and he started off with $30,000 annually in donations, and he's currently growing up to over $1.4 million in donations. Working with Yoneko had different aspects to it. Each day I would do something different. I worked with, like I said, the women, youth and children, and my main goal was to, like I said, brighten their future. And their goals were, met by doing things like participating in the activities Yoneko has and the planned events that they have. So what I did was I took the opportunity to work with the women, youth and children by, for example, they have a youth drop-in center which is available to all the youth in Malawi, where troubled youth can come in and essentially gain a better outlook on life and gain access to things that they never had before, such as education, food, and activities like children's band and sports activities. I also worked hands-on with some of the women and young girls that were there. And what Yoneko has is they have a helpline which you can call toll-free inside Malawi, and it's the only international helpline. And what happens is we work inside the helpline, and each day they get phone calls regarding different things, whether it be questions about sexual health or questions about reporting serious abuse cases. So I would work hands-on with any of the cases which involved Yoneko going to visit the so-called caller. So I would work hands-on with victimized girls who have been raped, and we would give them counseling and kind of boost their overall emotions and give them counseling, because Yoneko works with psychologists and other team leaders which are credited in such situations. They're professionals. I also worked hands-on with organizing sporting events and just overall working with the women, youth and children. I did find some solutions, and some of the solutions were things that you don't normally think of when you're kind of approaching a situation like HIV and AIDS in Africa. One of the solutions was to step back and ask them what they needed. Don't just jump to conclusions. Ask them what they really need. And don't just implement what you think is right. It's always about them. Remember that, and it's not always about what you think is right, but just take the time to sit back and ask them. Another thing was understanding that they're not really different from us. They're just the same as us, and they deserve the same rights as us. We both experience poverty, but in different levels. I mean, we have the people that live on the streets here in Montreal, but at the same time, they have people who are poor all over the place, and they're suffering from HIV and AIDS, poverty, hunger, whatnot. So we need to look at it kind of as they're just like us, and in a sense we need to help that way. Of course there's a few obstacles. I mean, being a white person in an African country, you stick out a lot, and one of the biggest difficulties, I would argue, was the language barrier, but at the same time I was working with the staff of Yoneko, so I would have a translator hands-on whenever I really needed one. But like I said, you get treated differently when you're a white person in Africa, whether it be good or bad. It does tend to be a barrier, because you can't always blend in with the place, so you can do the work you want to do without making a huge impact. Did feel safe. Malawi is a very peaceful country, and they have yet to experience any violence or war. But I also had the opportunity to stay with the executive director of the program, McBain, and staying with him, I felt that he really had, kind of this dad effect on me, where I felt that he was kind of like a second father to me, and if I ever ran into trouble or I needed help with something, he was always there to be with me. I would have to say the everyday people I worked with, especially the children, just to see that they were still able to function in a society they were brought up in with extreme poverty, HIV and AIDS, and rape and whatnot. For them to be able to thrive in this kind of community and still grow up to be, a normal person is absolutely incredible, and it's really inspiring to see that happen before your eyes, where each and every day you'd be working with these kids and you see the smile on their face just because they knew that they had a brighter future ahead of them thanks to Yoneco. One of the biggest things I learned, like I said before, was that we have to kind of step back and analyze the situation that's happening in Africa, particularly in Malawi, and sit back and ask them what they need. Whenever we speak about Africa, we always talk in terms of facts and numbers, whereas if we were to take a step back and say, well, who is this happening to and how is this happening? We can't see it as facts and numbers because they aren't as close to us as a real story is. Where if we take the time and ask about who it's happening to and how we can relate to it, would really help the situation. And that's one of the biggest lessons I learned. Without that lesson, I don't think I could have done the work I had done, because during my whole trip I was able to develop these relationships because I was so close to the people, and I didn't just see the numbers, I looked past them. Plenty of different ways you can get involved, and one of the most important ways you can get involved is supporting those that are involved already. Also, creating awareness is a huge benefit to situations like HIV and AIDS in Africa. People need to know about it and understand what's going on. Another way is just, if you can't give money, give your time. Support people and what they're doing, give a hand here and there. Or, of course, the alternative is giving your money to organizations that are currently in place. But be careful where you give your money, because of course there's always those organizations where your dollar doesn't stretch as far as you think it does. So be aware of what organization you're giving your money to.